Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ladies of the PGS. It is RM here, and of course, I have Lorena Creole here today. Lorena, how are you?
Well, I am doing great, doing wonderful, and as always love being here on Ladies of the PGS with you.
It is wonderful to have you here, Lorena. And I have to say that it is very funny that this story that you and I are going to be talking about suddenly appeared in the news. You and I were talking about Disney the other day, and I had said to myself, it is unfortunate what has happened, how, they have this call coming up, and
Hmm.
there's these guys who were saying restore the magic. And I said, yeah, this sounds very interesting, and we kind of agreed to talk about that. And then we heard about the premature death of Carl Weathers. I said, this is absolutely
Hmm.
the worst thing that could ever happen. Nobody was expecting this. And I thought to myself, not only have they lost Gina Carano, who was, pretty much the number one woman on the Mandalorian show,
Hmm.
then they went ahead and lost Carl Weathers, who was so instrumental in making this world creation seem real, this bounty guild seem real. Where is this located and who's in charge? And Carl Weathers was so important to that. To lose him too, I thought to myself, is there any way they can get Gina Carano to come back? And then, bam, this this I couldn't believe my eyes. And of course, everybody who is watching this um obviously knows what Lorraine and I are talking about, has to do with this idea, or at least what is going to happen. Gina Carano has this suit against Disney for the Mandalorian axing her, and she has someone else paying these bills. And this is truly, Lorena, something that I was not expecting to see, especially in light of everything we were discussing, especially in light of, where we think this is going. I don't think that this suit is anything she expects to win. Why is she doing this suit now, Lorena?
Hmm. Well, I think she's doing it now for, I would say, two reasons. And both of them have to do with the X platform, formerly known as Twitter. As you know, when Elon Musk bought Twitter, there was definitely a shift in how certain people would interact on the platform. There seemed to be removed this sort of, I would say, censorship that was on the platform. But when Elon Musk bought it, a good percentage of that went away. And Gina came back to X. Now, I want to say several months ago, Elon Musk basically said if anyone has been adversely affected by what was going on with Twitter before he bought it, um, let me know. And Gina replied and said, hey, I think I qualify. So I think that's number one. The opportunity was there. Second, and she said this on Twitter when she announced the lawsuit, that she didn't expect to hear anything. And then she got a message from Elon Musk's legal team. Elon Musk is basically the richest man in the world. And it's pretty safe to say he has some crack legal representation. So when you get legal representation that looks like they have some extremely deep pockets, even deeper than Disney's, I would say, that's the reason why I feel she really went for it, definitely, because for what she's for what she's fighting for, which is basically the ability to be able to say what you want on that particular platform and not have that come back to make you lose your job, especially when there are peers of yours who are doing basically the same thing, but in another direction, and nothing happens to them. And if something like that can happen to someone like Gina Carano, what's to say for those other actresses and actors in Hollywood who aren't, who aren't as famous? And so I think that really has a lot to do with it, especially the principle of the thing that you have some of these studios, especially Disney, um, engaging in, you know, things like that. Because how she was fired, and yes, she was fired, we found out the same time that she did when it showed up on social media. It's not like she had a meeting with Disney HR. It's not like, her agent got the call or something like that. No, that's not what happened. Does she have a case? According to Andrew, with legal mindset, it looks like she does. I read through the complaint. It definitely looks like she does, and she's demanding a jury trial. So, yeah, I do not blame her for doing this, considering what she's gone through on Twitter.
Yeah, I don't blame her either. And I personally think what's so interesting about this is that I think the way I see this playing out is that she will have a case, it will go to trial, and it'll be appealed and then go to a higher court, and then it'll be appealed all the way to the Supreme Court. That's where I see this one going. And the reason why I see it going
Mm,
there is because I don't think that Disney's gonna give up if they don't win. So it'll keep going higher and higher. And I think essentially what will happen is this will be one of those cases. It's not only gonna set precedent for what happens when it comes to political opinions and employment, but it is
mhm,
also going to set precedents for, freedom of speech in a way, if you will, in a way that we haven't had addressed now. I mean, we just had the president of Harvard have to resign because she was unable to define what she thought was um let's say an attack or aggressive words or
mhm,
whatever you want to call it. She was even dumbfounded and didn't know what to say. That might have been a good time for her to say, well, you know what, I'm going to speak to the rest of our legal team before I answer any of these questions, because I don't want to put the university in an awkward position when I myself am having trouble answering a question. And it's totally fine to do that, because the president of the university isn't necessarily the person who should be answering a question like that. So I think that once we get into a mindset of where it'll be a legal team who answers these questions versus someone making comments on Twitter and then that leading to someone being, getting into trouble for something, this might also have a repercussion for how, comments that were posted on Twitter get responded to or even can be used as evidence. So I think a
mm,
lot can happen from this. And not only I think it's going to be good in that regard, but also for reimagining this platform in a way that Elon Musk wants it to be imagined. He doesn't want people using it as a tool to harm others. I think he wants to 86 that idea completely and completely disassociate himself from the old way it was treated to a new era in this. And I think if he can do this, if he can pull this off, even bringing it to light and showing where they want to stand, regardless of the outcome, I think it speaks volumes, even from a mission statement for
mhm.
an organization. What do you think, Lorena?
Oh, that would be great if that could happen, because way, 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 way back when Twitter first came on the scene, it was just basically an open communication platform. You had something to say, that was great. Somebody said something you didn't like, mute them or block them and move the heck on. But Twitter became weaponized and used to hurt so many people. So I agree. This could definitely be something that, or a step that Elon can use to get Twitter back to the way that, well, it'll never be the way that it used to be, but let's just say a better version of what it should be.
Yeah, that's a good point about, a better version of what it should be. And it is true we see things on these platforms that we don't care for. We go on with our day. But I don't think anybody wants to see a behavior that continues where somebody puts something on there and, that person, whether it was today, yesterday, you know, 5 years ago. I think
Mhm.
that that whole premise of it, people are not necessarily happy in seeing it having pretty much, a double standard for one person versus another. We are kind of seeing a lot of that. And the other thing too is the idea that if somebody makes a comment on there that, we're kind of like holding them to their word, and if they don't agree with that a week from today, 2 years from today, it doesn't matter. They said it and that's it. Well, I don't know whether that's a realistic thing to think of because people change their minds about what they put on, and say to people all the time. I change my mind a few times about different things during the course of one day. And I think it is something to think about, and maybe if anything, we can see how look at it more from a social science point of view versus using it as evidence, like evidence, to support
Mm,
something.
yes.
Kind of look at people's feelings at that moment versus, whether, as you had said, as if it was used as a weapon, feelings versus a weapon. People say things sometimes, not in the case with Gina, but people do say things sometimes that they wish they hadn't said. And we are not necessarily the type of society where I think we can't forgive and also, grow from a lot of this. Will we
Mhm.
see more growth, do you think, Lorena? Do you think this might be one of those times that we've been waiting for where change is happening? It feels almost as if something miraculous is happening. I know it's not a miracle, but it kind of feels very different. And I even am looking at this from a very different point of view now. What do you think?
I really feel that the age of cancellation is over, or to be more specific, the age of cancellation by Twitter is over.
Mhm. Yeah, it's something to notice and realize. And here it says, here's the article. This is a deadline article. There have been many articles about this
Mhm.
here, and I did just want to kind of look at it. And certainly, I'm not going to relate why she's doing this. I'm more of looking at this in the sense of uh the idea of, here it says, and those that dare to question or fail to comply will not be tolerated, reads the compliant seeking a jury trial filed this morning, as you said, Lorena. And so it was with Carano. The rule of law still reigns over the defendant's empire, and Carano has returned to demand that they be held accountable for their bullying. Okay.
Mhm.
Bullying, which has been used on several platforms, has been used in also outside of platforms, but bullying and evidence of bullying and continue bullying going beyond the platform, even discrimination and retaliatory actions, which we know that there
Mhm.
has been retaliation towards her, and millions of income and dollars as well. And there's also and sex discrimination, and also,
Yes.
honestly, I think she should also sue, she says emotional harm. There, that's the one I was looking for. Um this really could be something that could be, I could see a person suing for damages because of how far this one went. And
Mhm.
here they talked about a scathing statement on its business with the actress, which was a mistake. And of course, you and I have spoken, Lorena, years ago, and
Mhm.
today, how companies would be very reluctant to put out things like this. They used to put out very kind of blanket statements where you couldn't read anything into it. It would say something like, business, whatever. We are very concerned about how our business is represented, and we are doing everything we can to commit and carry out our mission statement, and also make sure that we're giving the best product to the public. Thank you for your time. That was it. Like you wouldn't get anything. Why?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really interesting how deep they went into this, because a lot of times, a lot of these deals and stuff, when I say deals, a lot of these people who are in Hollywood or in business with companies would have like a gag clause. You couldn't say stuff like this. Even when they did get released or fired or whatever you want to call it, laid off, transferred to another show, whatever it was, a lot of it was very hush hush. Why do you think it's so many of these elements, which are traditionally hush hush and very conservative, all of a sudden became very pinpointed and maybe even kind of unfounded in a sense?
Hmm. I'm going to say again, from companies thinking that they can use Twitter as a weapon, and the atmosphere within Twitter that encouraged that, not only in the tweet streams that you could see, but direct messages behind the scenes. There definitely was that was going on. And when people see other people getting canceled just because of something that they wrote on Twitter, you have some of the people in Hollywood who are like, okay, great, we can use this. And it's an open secret that there's plenty of these folks that are in Hollywood who are on Twitter, who have some of their lieutenants in Twitter pulling up old tweets from like 2, 3, 5, 10, 15 years ago to do a gotcha to someone. And I also think, not endemic to Disney, but Disney seems to be the worst offender with this, of having so much hubris that they feel that they can treat people, especially their talent, any way that they want to get what they want, and to do what you want. I can I mean, I think of it like, say, can you imagine, like, if there was a sexual harassment lawsuit or something that was going on like that, and you know an actress had basically said something about what was going on, and she didn't really agree with that, and company does something like this in social media. It's really disheartening, and it's awful. But yeah, long answer to the short short question that you asked me. I think, again, the previous atmosphere of Twitter was that it was just being used to ensnare people and embolden companies like Disney to feel that uh, they had a way to coerce certain actors and actresses into doing things. Gina had mentioned that, I think it was the interview with the Daily Wire, where they wanted her to be subjected to a struggle session, to basically be in a Zoom call with 45 other people from the LGBTQA community, led by, and this is in the complaint, so I'm not saying anything
Mhm.
that's not in the complaint, reportedly to be led by Kathleen Kennedy, and Leslie Headland was going to be on that call. And they just basically were just gonna just go at her, what you did wrong and all of this. And Gina had done nothing wrong. As a matter of fact, I think she'd had like a session with two representatives from GLAD, and they had a very good discussion. And, Gina talked to them, and those two representatives basically told Disney, we don't see a problem here at all. But Disney wasn't satisfied with that. And they just chose to make an example of her. But Gina wasn't, you know, she wasn't tolerating that at all. And because she had the nerve to push back like that, and apparently she did not have the mindset that Disney wanted her to have. Not, she wasn't exactly like Pedro Pascal or like some of the other male actors on the show. They just made an example of her.
And, I have one final thing to think about here, and I'm sure you already are thinking about this as well. And it has to do with the shareholders again. And, as I said, recently we saw the Restore the Magic, and there are a lot of concerns. There are shareholders who have gotten up in meetings and asked questions like, why are you allowing this to go down in value? Very
Mhm.
pertinent questions for shareholders since they are investors in the company. And I wondered what kind of repercussions can shareholders take, or at least is this going to affect if they can take action against certain members of the board? Because decisions like the one that was made in this case, getting rid of your, most popular star in Star Wars, female star at the time, where things are riding high. It is, maybe one of the, most popular. I'm going to say it's the best series on Disney Plus, but it was one of the most popular series at a
Mhm.
point during the height of popularity. To fire someone under false pretenses and unfounded firing, a fault, a, really a firing that was based on nothing, thereby, kind of like breaching her contract. And also, as a consequence of doing this, she affected so many other things that were in the works, not just the Mandalorian Part 3, season 3, a new series, all sorts of things that were built upon this character going forward, maybe even half of what would have been coming out, or a quarter. Now they had to completely shift and change things. But in doing all this, they devalued the stock of the company. They devalued the IP. They, in pretty much a lot of the case, kind of, I'm not going to say, they had to shift the story so much that it decreased in popularity with these new shifts. This was not anything they thought they'd ever have to do, thereby decreasing stock. Could this be used? The fact that she was fired under false pretenses, under this fantasy idea of why she must be fired, could this be used as shareholders as a reason to get rid of, or to even punish, um, let's say, directors, or people on the board, because of this action that did have a profound effect on the value of
Mhm.
Disney?
I would say people on the board. Prime example, the annual stockholders meeting is going to be happening in April. Um, Disney has made it very plain that they do not want shareholders, and by shareholders, they're talking about peons like me who only have like a couple of shares of stock, to vote the way that the board wants you to vote. Don't vote for the Blackwell group. Do not, definitely don't vote for the Trian group. And this is the first time that they've done a push, like that. So if enough shareholders decide to vote the board out because they feel that this is just a bridge too darn far, that could very possibly happen. I know we had talked backstage that when you asked, kind of why now to sue, I think one, Elon provided the opportunity. Two, he's got the legal means to do it. Three, he's been very vocal about how he thinks Disney has just gone down the crapper in value. And four, the shareholders meeting coming up. And remember, Disney pulled advertising off of X because they thought that Elon had a certain we'll
Mm,
say a certain point of view or opinion that they didn't really like. And I won't say exactly what Elon said because frankly, I don't think it should be censored at all. I mean, I did bleep it on my channel, but that was pretty much it. That's what you're going to do. So you're going to do that. So basically, they tried to mess with Elon's money. So now Elon's like, "Okay, I'm going to hit you where it's really going to hurt. It helps that I'm helping Gina, and the payoff of this is in PR, and the court of public opinion is really going to be something, because this is the worst things. This is one of the worst black eyes that Disney could have gotten, to rile up stockholders like me who already know Disney doesn't give a crap about us. And then you've got the likes of Nelson Pelt saying, you know what, I went to Disney like a regular person. I didn't have a VIP tour. I didn't. have people round me to get me in the front of the line for for rides and stuff. It's like, yeah, we just went. Me and Jay Brazilo just went, and they just look like two grandfathers going around, the park, and they're very down to earth and like. This company is losing you money. So he's talking to stockholders like me. And now we see Elon using his money to help a fan favorite actress who was very much wrong, Gina Carano was. And that is basically the foot in the door and a means to get some of these people off the board.
Well, Lorena, I have to say, first of all, thank you for sharing all of these insights. This is certainly does feel like a turning point in things. And I can't wait to see what the final outcome will be, let's say in a year after all of this has happened. Um,
Jury trap, jury trap, jury
for this jury trial. I think we're going to see some things come out that have not been revealed because I'm sure that they've hidden a lot of the details of stuff that are so important to this case, but we just haven't been privy to it. So it's all going to come out in court. I think, honestly, now with this jury trial introduction and things, we are going to hear things. I don't think things are going to be held back. There's a lot more that has gone on behind the scenes than we have been privy to. And there's going to be a lot of like, oh my goodness, what? They what? We're going to see, as you mentioned, Lorena, that session where they were just going to bully her for hours and
Mhm.
hours and hours and probably still have the same outcome anyway. We're going to hear many more things that were going on, and certainly something to think about going forward. And I wonder if they're going to go so far as to find out, subpoena the identities of people who were bullying her on the platforms. I wonder if that will be allowed, Lorena. I can't see why not when her life was threatened, when so
Mhm.
many things happened that would be considered dangerous. Let's see where this can go because Elon's legal team are working 24/7 to help Gina get her day in court and have her say and defend herself rightfully so, just like any other person, because this was maybe one of the most extreme forms of bullying I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Mhm.
This was over the top, out of control, and most of us were defenseless to do anything about it. There was nothing we could do, and it didn't
Right.
feel good to watch a person, whether you agree with her or not. It didn't feel good to see that happening. It does not feel good to see other people get hurt by things like this. As far as I'm concerned, I'm sure you feel the same way. I'm sure most people feel that way. So, Lorena, let's hope that this turns over a new leaf. It's a new day. It's a new year. And,
Mhm.
Elon Musk doesn't just, it's not just about technology. It's a lot more. He's much more dynamic, I think, regardless of what he has to say. I don't care what he has to say because he can say whatever he wants to. I don't have to agree or disagree with everything he says, because that's how we are with like, we know people will say whatever they want to. That's fine. This
Mhm.
really is, I think, something that someone who does have money and the ability to do something like this, to still change like this, it is very unique. We don't always see this all the time, Lorena. It feels so good to see something like this. Usually I would see a company like the what's those guys, the Civil Liberties Union, or one of those law firms would go ahead and take the AFCL. I'm saying the wrong.
ACLU?
Yeah, sometimes they would take
Mhm.
on a case where they'd notice that it was, unfair to somebody's civil liberties or something like that. This is, in a sense, has a little bit of a tone to that as far as
Mhm.
I'm concerned, Lorena, except of course it's a celebrity who's the focus of this one. But let's see where this goes. It could set a lot of precedents that could help out a lot of people and stop a lot of harm from being done. So I'm excited for it. Lorena, thank you so much for being here to talk about this incredible story about Gina Carano. We wish her nothing but the best of luck in
Right.
everything she does. She was amazing as Cara Dune. I still love that character. I love her as an entertainer. She is wonderful. And certainly, Lorena, I have the feeling that things are going to certainly turn out very differently for her. But this, I feel like this case needed to come forward and this needed to
Mhm.
happen, not just for her, but for everyone to really have these parameters set. Um, it's so wonderful. Lorena, where can people find you?
Well, folks, you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter. And of course, you can find me here on YouTube for various videos and live streams for pop culture, sci fi analysis, and theme parks.
That's excellent. And guys, remember, Lorena is a person who actually goes to the parks.
Yes.
Boots on the ground, guys. She is actually there. Have no fear. She actually knows what's going on because she goes to the parks herself. So she's
Mhm.
giving you firsthand account of what is going on. So if you want to find out what's going on in the parks, go to Lorena's channel. She is there. She knows because she's actually going. Lorena, thank you so much for being here as always. And guys, you can find me here on the Burnettwork. You can find me on Positive Fandom, and you can find me on Roman Empire Matters. I so appreciate you being here, Lorena. It's always such a pleasure talking about what's
Likewise.
going on. And guys, for all of you out there, just remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind. Take care, everybody.